Coming up.
It's crazy. They're so big.
Bass player? What's not a bass player? CHUG.
Doesn't work the same, does it? Are we on? Okay, you are muted now.
I love it.
Hello everybody, welcome to Thomann's Guitars and Basses. My name is Guillaume, his name is Chris, and today with your yearly dose of Thor on the channel.
Yes. Once a year, gotta have it.
Exactly. Welcome back. As usual, our absolute pleasure to have you with the yearly treat from UAFX. Let's start chronologically. What is the ante?
So I think when we did the first 4 amps we did, there's like a pretty obvious thing missing, which is for all the guys out there who want to be a little bit more rock, or want to be a little bit more metal, or want to be a little bit more shreddy. Lion can do a little bit of that, but it's not the same sort of sound. So
for sure.
we, and me particular, being one who likes that sort of music, was really sort of hyped to be able to do this. So Anti is essentially a 5150, specifically an early block letter one. So the first ones had the initials of the famous guitar player signature model it is. This amp is used every day in studios. You wouldn't believe it. If you go into a studio and you want to do some metal, chances are you're at least going to try one of these out to see if that's the sound you're going to go for or not. Perhaps more so than any other metal amp out there right now.
I think so, yeah. So this one came out a little while ago. Now we've been able to play a little bit. What I would like to do, however, is have Chris play a little more.
Yes.
Okay, and something that I like to do throughout the video is to, so he's done the demo for it. I've played it as well for other demos, I think, depending on when this comes out. And but I'd like you to sort of put us in your soft spot for that pedal. Like, what kind of sound would you go for with the Anti, and see what that's like?
This is exactly what I wanted to ask you to do. It's almost like if we knew each other.
Oh my, so special.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so I can talk about it as well. Because basically, well, right now I don't, but I played in a death metal band for a long, long time, and I used one of these things. Yeah. So I'll just set it to roughly where I would set it.
Yes, please.
So I'll have it on the lead channel.
Wait. If it's going to be death metal, then I'll plug in the Solar. Just say.
Probably not have... I'll have the... But let's do the alt knobs first. That's easier. So for people who don't know this already, there's a built-in tube screamer in the circuit, because with a lot of metal amps, you need that to really make them chuggy. So I'll turn the gain more or less all the way down. This one sort of has to be adjusted, but just over noon, crank this all the way up. And then we'll have to see about the gate, but 12 o'clock, so there's also a built-in gate, by the way. 12 o'clock. Reso, so this was interesting. When the amp came out, it's actually one of the first amps where you actually don't need a tube screamer per se, because the resonance control can actually control the low end to a point where it will chug. It just sounds nice with the
nice to have the option.
It's nice to have the option, but there's plenty of metal albums done without a tube screamer.
For sure.
5150, where you just back down on the resonance. So let's put it back. Do not too much gain, because we can always adjust that. And then, honestly, I'm boring, so everything at 6, because it's metal.
Five's just not enough. It's got to be a little bit
And then I'll probably pick the California V30, which is essentially like an oversized recto-style cabinet with vintage 30s. So let's try it out.
How does that sound?
yeah.
It is a rare thing to have Dark Chris come out of the. But that's
Come and visit.
that's what the anti-Endersolar have
I
done.
need more hair so I can grow it.
Hey, well done, well done. All right, awesome. Moving on to you gotta change the solar again,
yes,
but I
yes,
mean no,
no
you
worries.
can you could keep it. You could keep
That would be-
like a Ola Bonamassa type of situation.
Ola Massa.
Ola Massa with the Enigmatic. What was the process behind the Enigmatic?
So the process behind this was that we were going to do the same thing. And then in typical style, we went totally crazy, overboard, and turned it into like a, multi-year science project.
Yeah.
So it started out as more or less sort of a model of one specific overdrive special amp.
Yeah.
But we had the rare opportunity to actually go and investigate a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
What we decided to do was basically say, so what if we could actually make a pedal that had that overdrive special sound? But I mean, obviously, you're not gonna have Mr. D there to sit and tune it for you like you would have in the real world. But what if you could do that yourself? So that is really what we did. So basically, we took 3 eras of overdrive specials.
Okay.
And we modeled all the different components, because even though it sounds like every single amp was basically built from scratch, completely new circuit, that's not really the case.
No.
So there's some different basics that sort of go again, and it would be more a matter of how to put this. It would be more a matter of how all those different components were then put together in one specific amp.
Yeah.
So if you modeled all of those components, you can essentially create your own overdrive special, and that's what you really can do in this pedal. Now on the front of it, because we didn't want to make something where it feels like you have to have a science degree to do it, so we made one version. But if you open it up and you use the app, you could literally create any era of overdrive special if you wanted to. And so few people have played them, so they don't know what to look for.
That's it too. Yeah. What's your comparison point? Like you're always going to be like, oh yeah, that sound from.
I mean, there are other amps out there that will sort of
get in the ballpark.
Get in the ballpark, or honestly, basically make a clone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fine as well. So if anybody has played some of those amps, that's a way to sort of get that sound. Obviously, you can listen to a ton of albums. There's so many albums done with these things.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. But I think the most important thing is just trust your ears. Listen to what you like. But in the app, there's a bunch of different presets, and even though they are inspired by certain guitar players or albums, we didn't want to go too much overboard with that, because the idea is not really to give something like, you set the knobs exactly like this, you'll get that sound. No, the idea is more like, you like that type of sound, well, and now it's going to get a little bit nerdy, but then you actually need the Skyliner tone stack instead of the classic tone stack that changed at some point during the 80s. Or late 80s, and you actually need, to change the power amp from a high plate 50 watt to a low plate 100 watt, and so all of these things we model, and you can actually change that. And even though you look at all these options and you go feature paralysis, just go through the presets and find the one you like, and you're gonna go, this sounds like, this sounds a little bit like John Mayer. This sounds like Robin Ford. So when you go to the app, there's like a whole list of things, and it sort of goes, the first one you can pick is basically 4 different sort of basic amp topologies.
Yeah, nice.
And then you can go even deeper. You can go super nerdy with this, but even just switching between those 4 basic amps that are essentially going to go from loose or more squishy to like very stiff and very sort of, you hit it and it's like, Grr! Just switching that will drastically change the feel and the characteristics of the amp.
Chris,
Can I request 2 different settings? One like the clean type of thing, like
let's do
something
that.
that you would say like, that's a sweet, super clean, and then a second one which is your favorite sort of crunchy sound on it.
I do like the clean, I have to say.
Okay.
So a couple of things with dumbbells in general. I mean, these are called overdrive specials,
Yep.
and it's because they have an overdrive circuit.
And it's pretty special.
And it's very special. But when you turn that off, it's basically an additional tube circuit.
Yeah.
So it's not a volume and a gain. It's an extra thing that you add on. So when you turn that all the way off here, the overdrive knob here, it's basically the same as turning that off. On the actual amp, you would have a foot switch.
Yeah.
But you would turn that off on the foot switch. You can actually set the pedal in a mode where it works that way. So you just use a foot switch to turn that on and off. So it's like a 2-channel amp, but it's not really a 2-channel. So this is still gonna do that. Very, very clean, as you can hear. And you know, for the overdrive folks out there, and who isn't an overdrive person, right? For all the guys out there who love to buy overdrives and just get all these sorts of flavors, it's the perfect platform for that.
Yeah.
I've used a Dream for that for a long time, but it's interesting with a Dream or a Deluxe Reverb. You actually can't get it entirely clean. There's always a little bit of hint of a breakup, which is nice sometimes, and that's also a sound. But if you just want that, it's clean. Yeah. It's Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's John Mayer. That's the sound for that. I'm gonna change to the D65. We're probably gonna bring the bass down a bit, and then we're gonna do the.
Love the dynamics, man.
You feel good?
Like with the fingernail, it's glassy and sweet, and you dig in and it just beefens up.
Yeah, based on what I've tried that was sort of at least meant to be in that vein, I had this idea that these were very sort of polite and sweet sounding.
Yeah.
And having tried them, not at all.
No.
They're actually quite drastic and quite sort of, they're unruly, but in an extremely musical way. Yeah. It's like feedback is just sort of waiting to happen. You feel like stuff is just right under your fingertips, and it's also they're hard to play.
They're really difficult.
It's not like you go, oh, I have a bad day. The amp is gonna save me. No, the amp is gonna just put the spotlight on you and go like, oh, you have a bad day. Now everybody can hear it.
The star of the day, the Knuckles.
The Knuckles.
The Knuckles 92 Rev F dual rec amplifier. Why this specific version? Why this specific revision?
With me coming from a metal background, the Rev F was the first one. They did some circuit changes that made the amp more tighter and a little bit more aggressive sounding. The earlier versions were a little bit more old school. Just as an example, I think George Lynch used like a Rev C, and I love his tone. It's awesome, but it's not. You don't think of his tone as metal, right? So the Rev F was the one where it's like I think the metal world were like, oh, what the hell?
Hello.
Just personally, I owned one, so it was awesome coming back to those tones again. Sadly, I sold it because I'm an idiot, but. Such is life sometimes.
Sometimes it's what it takes to be like, I'm gonna make that pedal just out of spite.
But it to us it was obvious that it was the Rev F we wanted to do. And in some cases it's these finding one specific model is almost it's not always necessary, but there is actually a very big difference between the different eras of rectifiers going up to after Rev G, and then you get into the triples, which sound different, and you have like the rectoverbs and the tremoverbs and all these different versions. But so this is Rev F, which for the people out there is the 100-watt version with 2 channels, not 3 channels, no reverb, no tremolo.
But they are still notoriously.
It's crazy. They're so big.
So is that why we still have the parentheses at the bottom there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for metal stuff with knuckles, you need that or something to keep the lows, because it's a sumo wrestler coming into a room and just going like. It's probably
Bass player? What's not a bass player?
it's just there's so much low and so much of everything in this amp. It's crazy.
Okay.
So you need something to cut a little bit of the lows out, and a tube screamer is a great way to do it. So one of my all-time favorite metal tones is Dead Heart in a Dead World, Nevermore, Jeff Loomis.
Yeah.
That's a 7-string. Dual rectifier with a tube screamer in front of it.
Yeah.
And it's a killer sound. But you need that to get the chugging. We wanted to make sure that when you buy one of these pedals and you're in that sort of metal, rock, punk, whatever it is mode, that you can take the pedal and you can get the sound that you want. And the interesting thing is that with a lot of amplifiers, it's like, oh, I like a Marshall. There's so many different ways to make a Marshall sound good, but it can also sound amazing just by itself. But if you want to get that rectifier metal sound, you need something in front of it, and you need a gate as well. So that's why we decided for both of these amps to put that in there, which literally means that if you could literally just do a gig with that and tune it. If you're a rhythm guitar player, you could have these 2 on a board and you'd be fine.
I'd like to hear the difference I like, for people that are not familiar with the sound of a dual rec amplifier or style amplifier, to have a sound with and one without the tube, just
I can start chugging. Maybe you turn the tube
I'll turn
screamer
the
off.
tube screamer off
And then just turn on to tighten it up.
Yeah.
that would be lovely.
So if you don't want to have the tube screamer on, you just put it on all, and then the overdrive level is essentially the off. So turn that all the way down, it's off.
Forgot it was in the 5th fret. Sorry, world. Oh my God, that feels so different.
Yeah.
It's night and day, and I hate to say the one I had, I sold it because I didn't know about. I got it literally right when they came out, and nobody sort of said, "Oh, you need to buy this pedal alongside of it." So I was just like, "It has plenty of gain. I can't get the sound that I want out of it because I wanted to chug and I couldn't get it to do it." So I'm like, "I'm gonna sell it again." Little did I know that I should just have taken my tube screamer in front of it, but it seemed like a silly thing to do because typically you put a tube screamer in there.
I don't want more gain. What are you talking about?
There's enough, way more than enough gain.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about rectifiers and knuckles is that there's punk rock bands, there's Green Day, there's Foo Fighters, there is
Blink 182 was
Blink 182. There's all the new metal bands. There's Korn and Creed and you name it. This amp is actually extremely versatile. It can even do some great cleans. Even the great Alan Holsworth used one on Wardenclyffe Towers.
True,
All the lead tones on Wardenclyffe Towers is a rectifier. Whenever we do models of these, we do everything.
Yeah.
So anybody who is familiar with rectifiers will know that there is actually quite a few sort of options that you can choose. The reason why the damn thing is called a rectifier is dual rectifiers because it has two rectifiers.
Yeah.
So it has a solid state rectifier and a tube rectifier. We put it on the solid state because that's where you get the snappiness. But if you want to get more of that sort of more traditional rock and roll looser feel, you can put it on the tube one. That's in the app. If you want to switch from 606s, which is what we have in here now, to EL34s and make it way more martially, you can do that as well. And it's awesome, by the way. So there's two channels on this amp.
Yeah.
There's an orange channel, which can either be crunchy or clean.
Yeah.
And there's a red channel, which can only be very, very crunchy.
Violent.
But you can change the orange channel from being vintage to modern on the back of the amp.
Yeah.
And you can change the red channel to be more vintage. It's not the same. It's not going to swap.
It's not going to turn the red into an orange and
It's a different sound.
Yeah.
You can do that as well. And I was telling you guys before that we actually found a weird little, I don't know if I should say it's a bug, but it actually, they must be doing something to the circuit that basically means that when you do that, they're actually lending a little bit of the circuit from the other channel, which means that the presence, and only the presence control, works on the inactive channel when you do that. So that's obviously modeled. So if you go to the app, there's when you do that, there's actually an extra presence control of the inactive app, that the inactive channel that you can tweak as well.
That's so cool.
So again, nerding out. But
just
coming
like dropping Easter eggs.
coming back to what you said before about, so the dual rectifier has an effects loop. Because of the way it's designed, it really means that you can take the preamp 100% by itself with the tone stack, and you can take the power amp 100% by itself, or obviously you can take the full amp. So we're like, it could actually be kind of a neat thing to do because there are people who are slaving into these, or maybe there are some people who just want to use this as an overdrive pedal. So there's actually three choices. There's the full amp, there's just the preamp, then it turns into a distortion pedal. Or there's just the power amp, which means that if you bought like one of those, say a Friedman preamp, but you're like, I do need some sort of power amp after this. This is like one of the most powerful, amazing power amps that you can get, and it actually has toggles for 6L6 or EL34, so you can even choose that as well. And you get all the cap sims on top of it. So it's actually, it does a lot of stuff. Last thing, then I'll stop talking for a little bit, because we did talk about...
We're here for that. You were literally here for that.
Awesome. I can't help myself. I'm excited about this.
Me too.
So now all these guys, metal guys, rock guys who use the Tube Screamer in front of this, that's like a classic thing to do. And there are a lot of variations of different overdrives that you put in. So some put like an 808 in front, some put like a Maxon something, some put like an SD9 in front of it. They're all flavors of the same thing. But there's one band, actually there's two bands, but there's one band in particular that are famous for using rectifiers that used another pedal that sounds radically different and will give you a very different flavor, and that's Meshuggah. On Chaosphere, at least, and Destroy, Erase, and Improve, they used rectifiers with 7 strings. And Frederick from the band is basically a big collector of the old TC Electronic booster pedal. So we're like, oh man, it would be nice to have that sound in there as well. So we basically modeled that as well. If you want that sound, if you want that sort of super aggressive, ultra tight math metal gent kind of sound,
that's so cool.
You can actually switch to that, and then the overdrive becomes a bass. It's not a drive pedal. There's no,
it's a
becomes a bass. You turn that all the way off. Mid is tone is treble. You put that to you wherever you like it, and then level is level still.
That's so cool. It's funny you say that because I remember interviewing Matt Heafy from Trivium. And he, because of Frederick, he started collecting those TC pre's because he was using those into his 5150s. Saying that it's just a completely different flavor in comparison to everyone using variations of the Tube Screamer thing. So that's actually pretty epic.
Which I'm glad you mentioned that, because we actually put it in here as well.
Ah, so
So it's also in there.
I had no idea. I swear this is not planned. This is awesome. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And if you want to swap those, you can do it in
You
the
just
app.
do it in the app.
In the
Yeah.
app. Okay,
You do it
gotcha.
in the
Oh,
app.
that is
Okay.
so cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us the rundown and introducing us and you lovely people to the knuckles. We're going to finish on some heavy chugging because that's why we have a Chris. Tor, thank you so much.
Everybody should have a Chris.
Everybody should have a Chris. You get a knuckles, you get a Chris. No, I'm kidding. I know he won't ship separately.
I'm gonna have a busy autumn.
But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you have any more questions about these. Chris and I read the manuals. We'll do our best. Otherwise, we'll call Tor again. Tor, thank you. See you next year.
My pleasure. I hope so.
You guys take care and we'll see you in the next one.
Chuck.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.